guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Autumn Vera and this is Fall Between the Pages. So if you guys haven't checked out one of my latest videos, it is me just talking about books that I have read early on this year and what I liked and didn't like about them. So you can check that video out in the description below and let me know how I did. Did I meet the time requirements or did I go a little bit overboard? Because sometimes that can happen. One of the other things that I also want to do on this channel soon is a shout out video. I appreciate you guys so much for staying with me, for commenting on my videos. Sometimes I feel like, you know, some videos aren't that great, but I still post it anyway because it's content and maybe somebody will like it. But I appreciate you guys for sticking with me through this journey. I realize I'm getting more followers and I didn't even realize that at first. I have to check YouTube more. But yes, I'm definitely going to do a shout out videos for everyone who's commented, who's left me a recommendation for a book to read, who has, you know, conversated with me about books that they have read and their thought process on it. I will definitely do a full shout out video soon. So thank you guys so much. And again, just let me know any books that you think I might be interested in. As you can see, I have tons of books that I may or may not have gotten to yet. My TBR is endless, so I can always add more, no worries there. So in this video, I'm actually going to talk about some of my June reads. I have picked out quite a huge book haul for June, and from that huge haul that I actually had, I only selected just a few books to get started with for this month. And one of the books that I actually picked out is Pride and Premeditation. So this is the classic Jane Austen novel with a murder mystery twist, and you have Lizzie and Darcy going up against each other as an amateur sleuth slash lawyer and an actual lawyer himself. So I was very intrigued by this. I saw the cover, and of course I'm a sucker for beautiful covers. I actually love beautiful covers, and sometimes that can get me into trouble when it actually comes time to read the book, because was the book good or was it just like, all right, you can read it later. But this one was actually fabulous. I was blown away by this twist. I think the author did a fabulous job with maintaining the classic storyline, the classic characters, but also diving into this new world with them. So fabulous job there. It's clever, it's witty. I was smiling the entire time. I did this book in parts. I actually read some of it and then I did it on Audible through Scribe. So if you guys haven't checked out Scribe, do so. The link is down below. The subscription to read books / listen to books is about $10 a month, which isn't a bad price at all compared to Audible. Yeah, Amazon Audible is a little bit too pricey. You pay for the subscription, but then you also pay for the books again. I'm sorry, but no. So I do Scribed, and I am very and I am a fan of it. It is a great place to get your reading done, especially if you're on the job sitting behind a desk like I am most of the day throughout the week. So I was very intrigued. I actually went through this pretty quickly, and I loved, like I said, the murder mystery. In this novel, you have Darcy's friend who is actually convicted of murdering his brother-in-law, and so Darcy has been hired to represent him in court, but he's only there to represent the facts. So now you have Lizzie, whose father only has daughters, no sons. So he's hoping that one of his daughters will get married so he can pass on the business, the law firm, onto one of them, but unfortunately none of them have gotten married yet, and Lizzie is the most difficult one because she not only wants not to get married, she just wants the family business and to be able to take care of herself, which her parents are slightly against. Her father not so much, but her mother definitely. And so she's built on with all this pressure and expectations to marry, to have kids, to have this perfect, like, sustainable life, but all she wants to do is do what she wants without anybody judging her. So she has a lot to live up to. And in this novel, Lizzie is confronted with this murder mystery. She now thinks that, oh, if I can get him to hire me as the lawyer to represent him to find the truth, maybe my father will actually see that I am worth handing the business over to. So now you have these two rivals in murder mystery, law, and possibly love to find out what happens and who the real culprit is. I was fascinated by the story. I love anything with a twist. In Jane Austen's novels, Pride and Prejudice is actually one of my favorite ones. The two characters, Darcy and Lizzie, are always going at each other with insults and words, and just to see them like hate and then love each other later is just a whole entire vibe and process. So I was really down for this book. And I think that one of the best things about this was just that it really grasps your attention from beginning to end. You have the facts about the murder, you have the culprits, you have who it could possibly be, and then when it finally all ties together, the ending, of course, I was hoping for a little bit more. I didn't think the culprit would be who the culprit would be, but at the same time, it's not really made sense. But I still enjoyed it regardless. I'm hoping that the next book, because this is going to be a series, thank you, it's going to be a series. So I'm hoping that the next few books are going to have a more put together ending than this one. But I gave this 4 stars nonetheless because, like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm hoping for more murder mysteries that give a little bit more of a challenge as to who the culprit is. And yeah. But if you guys have read Pride and Premeditation, oh, my iPad's lighting up. If you guys have read Pride and Premeditation, let me know what your thoughts were. How did you like Lizzie's character in this? Do you think that the characters lived up to the actual classics of Jane Austen's novel? And if the ending could have been done differently, who do you think the culprit should have been? Because I wanted somebody else to be the culprit. And that wasn't the case, but it was still a great read. So that was the first book for June that I actually finished, and this I got from Barnes & Noble. It is part of the YA book club exclusive edition. Sometimes I leave the stickers up here. I know some people hate the stickers, but I don't actually mind them too much. But yeah, if you guys read this novel, let me know what you thought. So one of the books that I actually read for the month of June that wasn't originally a part of my list, but I still ended up reading it anyway, and I just finished this past week, was The Silent Patient. So The Silent Patient, I've heard great things about. His new book, The Maidens, is just released, I think either this past week or earlier this week. I have to check the dates again. But The Silent Patient was intriguing. You have a murder mystery about this perfect couple, or seem to be a perfect couple, Alicia and Gabriel. They are both artists in their own right. Alicia is a painter, Gabriel is a photographer. And then one day Alicia shoots her husband in the face 5 times. And then she never says a word again for a couple of years. And now everybody is pulled into the story. What actually happened? Is she crazy? Was she just faking it? Was there a reason why she shot her husband 5 times in the face? So this book was really one of the first ones that I had picked up and had selected from Book of the Month, because as you can see, I love Book of the Month's books. So Book of the Month is actually about $16 a month, and you can get 1 book and add on for a pretty good price. And so I had selected The Silent Patient like a while ago, but I just never actually picked up the book and read it. So I did this one on Scribd, and I read parts of it, and I was really intrigued. Alicia ends up being convicted, and she's deemed guilty of her husband's murder. All of the evidence points towards her, but she never says anything in her defense. She stays silent through the entire time. And it becomes like one of those phenomenons where people are really just wondering why, what happened, is she actually crazy? She ends up in a psychiatric hospital and still never says a word. And so now you have this psychotherapist of Theo who is going in. He has been married for a while. His marriage is kind of rocky, but he is trying to see if he can reach Alicia and have her tell him her story to figure out what actually happened in their marriage for her to shoot her husband 5 times in the face. Now, I actually loved the psychotherapist hunting down clues, trying to unravel this murder. But then, you know, with Theo's character, he's intriguing. He had a rough childhood. He was able to climb up and make something of himself. But of course, he still has insecurities, and especially with him being married, his insecurity comes from dealing with his wife, and unfortunately he's not all that secure in his marriage. So what ends up happening, he ends up going to the hospital trying to figure out if he can be the one to make Alicia talk. He is still working as a psychotherapist, but at the same time he just really wants the opportunity to work with her and to be the one to get her to actually speak and tell her story. Now Theo, like I said, has insecurities. He is a well-developed character in the beginning because as the novel gets towards the end, you start noticing things about Theo that you didn't pick up on before and weren't really shown before either. And I'm just like, well, why is he so obsessed with her? Because of course there's other cases out there that he could definitely look into. He's a psychotherapist. He doesn't have to stay at this hospital. He doesn't have to try and talk to her. But what exactly is he so obsessed with? And you end up finding out later exactly what ended up happening to make him go a little bit cuckoo. And not just a little bit, like a whole lot. And spoilers, if you haven't read the story, I'm sorry. But spoilers, you can end this video like right now and not even watch it. But yeah, I didn't want him to be the culprits, so to speak, and I say it with like culprit because he is and isn't at the same time. But you see him really trying to get rid of Alicia because she knows something about him, and he becomes not afraid but just paranoid that she will actually say something. And so when you actually piece everything together, Alicia's husband Gabriel was cheating with Theo's wife, and so that's how the two intersect. And you actually start thinking, well, Theo went a little bit berserk by following this dude home, and he's basically stalking his wife's like boyfriend. So you don't really think that Theo has all his pieces together. He's becoming a little bit unhinged, but at the same time he thinks himself to be smarter than what everyone else gives him credit for. And unfortunately Alicia, she's smart in her own right. Now I've heard a lot of things about the author, about how he downplays women in his books, how he makes them victims, how he just makes them feel like they're sexual objects. And I have to say, since this is the first book that I've read by him, I didn't really see that too much in Alicia. I saw that everybody wanted her. She was beautiful, but of course they made her into the victim, and I thought that at least her husband was trying to make her go crazy, like in the movie The Invisible Man, or, you know, trying to make her seem a little bit out there so that way he can hold on to control of her, or maybe her money if they were, or she was rich. But that wasn't the case. It was something completely different, and it was just Theo going in saying that, oh yeah, your husband slept with my wife, what do you think you should do with him? Leave a loaded gun on the floor, and he was out. And I was just like, really? You're going to leave a loaded gun on the floor? Now I get it. You didn't know Alicia's backstory, her, you know, broken history, her psychological mind, but at the same time, you don't leave a loaded gun in somebody else's house after you tell them that their husband and or wife was cheating on them. Like, that's not the smartest play there. So the fact that that happened in the book and nobody else was around to actually see all of this occur was actually a little bit mind-boggling to me, because I was like, well, I mean, that's an ending, but it's not the ending I probably was looking for this book. But nonetheless, it was still a pretty good read. I think that it deals with a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, and then a lot of people's insecurities is put out there about how they think one thing, and without all the facts they end up doing something horrible. And it just shows how broken the human mind can be. And I'm not sure what the message was here, that nobody can get away with murder probably, but at the same time I'm just like, I think maybe there needs to be something else in here, just something else. But the story was still pretty good. I was intrigued by it. I thought that Theo, like I said, was an interesting character. Alicia was interesting in her own right. They didn't really do much for her character in this book, but like I said, at the same time, she was the victim and she didn't speak for like years. I think that there is just a lot that could and couldn't be done with this book. But if you've read The Silent Patient, what were your thoughts? How do you think the author should have portrayed Alicia in this book? How do you think Theo should have been portrayed in this book? And did you or did you not like this ending? Because the ending was just, I don't know, the ending was just for me. I think I gave this book like 3.5, 4 stars. So let me know what your thoughts were. So for the next and last book I'll update you guys on for the month of June. I do have like 2 other books that I have finished. I'm going to do individual book reviews for those because I want to really discuss more about these books. But the last book I am going to talk about is another book of the month pick, is The Lost Apothecary. This was one of my original June picks, and like again, I said, I love the cover. The cover is just amazing. It's amazing. So The Lost Apothecary, if you guys had checked out one of my other videos for my June TBR picks, it was actually just me talking about how I was interested in this book set in the 18th century London about a secret apothecary shop that's set up for women who may need a little bit of extra help as far as like help getting rid of the men or people in their lives who are subjecting them to either undermining pressure or just making their lives basically miserable. And so in this novel, it actually splits between 2 timelines, the 18th century timeline and the modern timeline, and it spans across 2 different women. One is a woman who just found out, I think her name is Caroline. Yes, so Caroline just discovers that her husband has been cheating on her, and they were supposed to be taking their 10th anniversary trip to, I think it's London or somewhere, and she ends up going alone because her husband is just atrocious. So it's just one of those things. I was like, James James, you need to go. So I was really intrigued about Caroline. I thought that it was a great way for her to have her own story, for her to find her individuality again, because she gave up a lot for her husband to achieve his dreams, and she lost herself along the way. In this novel, you have her perspective of her trying to figure out what she wants to do next. And then you have, in the 18th century, Neela, who actually runs the Lost Apothecary shop, and she had taken it over from her mother, but instead of doing it as herbalistics to heal, she actually started doing poisons, because after she was hurt by a man who actually used one of her poisons against her, she was like, well, I'm never going to allow this to happen again to another woman, and she set up the apothecary shop. And it really is interesting how the stories intersect. Caroline is a historian, or at least she would be if she had pursued her dreams. She finds one of the apothecary bottles that has a symbol of a bear on it, and she starts doing some digging about what this could possibly mean, and she uncovers that there was a lost apothecary shop. And what ends up happening to Nella and the young girl who is with her, that she ends up finding coming to her store, whose name is Eliza. And so there was a lot of touching moments in this novel. I thought it was really important how Nella, who had lost a child of her own, was caring after this girl Eliza, who was just really curious and thought that magic was real because you had all these different bottles and they looked like potions. But at the same time, she was going through her own struggles of finding herself. She was in a household where there was like a predatory man, or master as they call it, of the house, because she was a maid, and her mistress, who was really looking after her, told her to go to Nella's store and buy something from there. And that's how Eliza came upon Nella and ended up learning that Nella sold poisons. So their meeting was really interesting. Eliza really wasn't put off at first. She was a little bit scared, but she ended up going back to Nella because she found something curious about Nella, and Nella just in turn was just like, well, if you're going to be here, at least help. But at the same time, Eliza's a child. She's 12. So she ends up going through the apothecary and just rummaging around everything. And in doing so, she ends up inadvertently putting Nella and the apothecary at risk. And so it was just really interesting, like I said, how these two stories intersected. I really love how everything came together. And if you guys actually read the story, what did you think about Caroline and James? Did you think Caroline should have given James another chance? Because let me tell you, he was crazy. He was just a little bit crazy. I didn't think so. I think her finding herself and going back to school and pursuing her dreams was really a great touch to this novel. You can actually consider this a feminist novel, I guess, in a way, but at the same time, not really. It's just a story about women trying to stand up for themselves and go against the pressures that is set upon them by everybody else. Because with Caroline, her parents really wanted them to stay together, even though she hadn't necessarily told them yet. And for Nella, she was just trying to do something that she thought was right, but at the same time, she realized how it endangered herself and possibly other people. So I was really intrigued by the story. I gave it about 4 stars. And like I said, I love the cover. If you guys read The Lost Apothecary, what did you think about Nella and Eliza's relationship? Did you think it played off well, or did you think Eliza just needed to leave Nella alone? Because she had her hands in everything. And being 12 and with little education, yeah, she needed a little bit more boundaries for sure. But I actually really enjoyed the novel, and I thought their relationship was really cute. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought about The Lost Apothecary. What was your latest read, and do you think I would enjoy it? You can leave the comments down below. Those are the 3 books that I have for today. Like I said, my other books that I've read for this month already, I want to do separate videos for them, and I will be filming a shout out video later, so look for that probably sometime in July. All right guys, thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I will check you guys later. Bye.